It wasn't supposed to make headlines, but it did, sending shockwaves. A closed-door fundraiser. A routine evening in Florida. No cameras, no press, just the usual mix of donors, deals, and old political swagger. But within 72 hours, that room would trigger a diplomatic eruption across oceans. An island once known for its calm suddenly stood at the center of a global firestorm. Statements were issued, flags were raised, borders were closed. And for the first time in modern history, a small Caribbean nation delivered a message to a former U.S. president that stunned even his critics. No one expected it. Not the State Department, not his supporters, not even his enemies. So now everyone is asking the same question. What really happened between Barbados and Donald Trump? And why is the world still holding its breath? In this video, let's find out. On June 2, 2025, a political fundraiser in Palm Beach should have passed unnoticed. It was the kind of exclusive gathering where nothing of consequence was supposed to happen. Just a few familiar faces, a few cocktails, and the same well-worn rhetoric. But someone was noticing, and what they heard would echo far beyond the gilded walls of the venue. In his typical brash style, Donald Trump delivered what many thought was an offhand throwaway remark. "We send billions to islands most Americans can't even find on a map. And all they do is complain. One of them even ditched the Queen. Now they want respect?" The room reportedly chuckled, but outside those doors the world wasn't laughing. The comment wasn't vague. It was unmistakably aimed at Barbados, a nation that had proudly severed its symbolic ties with the British monarchy in 2021 to become a republic. But this wasn't just about monarchy or aid. What Trump had done was bigger. He had casually dismissed the identity, the history, and the sovereignty of an entire region. To him, Barbados was still just an island, not a state with agency or purpose. And while such rhetoric may have passed unchallenged in the past, this time, it didn't. Something shifted. By June 4th, the reply came. And it didn't come in whispers. Prime Minister Mia Mottley stepped in front of cameras, her tone calm but resolute. Already known worldwide for her firebrand leadership on climate justice and post-colonial equity, she made it personal and political. "Barbados is not a beggar at anyone's table," she declared. "We are not here to be insulted or dismissed, not by past empires, and certainly not by past presidents." She didn't raise her voice. She didn't need to. Her words landed like steel.
Neo-colonialist structures that perpetuate and reflect an old world order characterized by racism and classism and misogyny, while ignoring the legitimate aspirations of billions, will not help to foster the hope or trust that is necessary to meet these polycrises. We must ensure that the global institutions give developing countries, especially small vulnerable states like my own, or vulnerable middle-income countries, seats at the table of decision-making where we can be seen, heard, become active agents in our own cause and lead our own development paradigms.
Hours later, Barbados made history. For the first time, it was reported that Barbados formally banned a U.S. president from entering its territory. The resolution, passed by the Barbadian government, framed the ban as a matter of national dignity and self-respect. But the implications were global. More than just an act of defiance, this was an assertion of self-worth by a nation often seen as peripheral to global power centers. And to make it even clearer, Barbados announced it would suspend consultations with selected U.S.-based organizations until a review could determine whether these relationships honored mutual respect. What Mia Mottley had done was not just to clap back. She had drawn a red line, and she had drawn it in ink, not sand. Interestingly, the speed at which this defiance turned into a movement caught everyone off guard. By the end of the week, Barbados was no longer standing alone. In Port of Spain, Trinidad and Tobago's foreign minister issued a statement that shocked everyone. "We reject dismissive international attitudes toward our region." Jamaica's opposition leader took to social media and posted simply, "Barbados speaks for all of us." Even Grenada, typically measured in diplomatic crises, convened an emergency parliamentary session to discuss regional solidarity. Then came Dominica and St. Kitts, both traditionally neutral players, releasing formal statements of support. Within days, Trump's insult had united a region long seen as divided by colonial history, linguistic barriers, and uneven development. Trump was no longer a domestic political figure. He was now a symbol of arrogance, of outdated empire thinking, of a kind of global disrespect that Caribbean nations were finally fed up with. In contrast, Barbados wasn't just a country anymore. It was becoming a stand-in for an entire region's dignity, long overlooked and often underestimated. The shock wasn't that Barbados had responded. The shock was that it had awakened the region's collective memory and its collective will. As the news spread, so did the pride. Social media lit up across the Caribbean diaspora. TikTok creators reimagined Barbados as the Wakanda of the West Indies. Instagram feeds were filled with the phrases, "Island Pride" and "We don't beg." Even Google data reflected the moment. A 230% spike in searches for "moving to Barbados" revealed how much the international public had been stirred. Travel influencers, once focused solely on sand and sunsets, began turning their lenses toward something more meaningful: Barbadian leadership, culture, and defiance. Suddenly, Barbados wasn't just desirable, it was inspiring. Before we continue further, tell us, are you enjoying the video? If yes, please like and share the video and subscribe to our channel to watch more videos on the latest news stories on geopolitics, economics, and current affairs impacting your lives. Something even more unexpected happened. From across the Atlantic, African leaders began weighing in. Ghana and Kenya both issued statements drawing connections between their own journeys of self-definition and the stand Barbados had taken. It was subtle but powerful, a gesture that signaled solidarity between continents shaped by the same scars. Post-colonial nations were watching one of their own refuse to be disrespected, and they were cheering her on. The world was watching too. What had begun as an insult now looked like a turning point. The Caribbean was no longer just a fragmented region of post-colonial states. It was becoming a diplomatic bloc with a backbone. And it was Barbados, small in landmass but massive in resolve, that had lit the match. In the United States, the fallout was immediate. But it wasn't one unified reaction. It was a fracture. One side saw betrayal, the other saw bravery. Trump loyalists, already accustomed to interpreting criticism as an attack, lit up social media with fury. Influencers on the right labeled Barbados ungrateful, questioning why a nation that once benefited from U.S. aid would dare to show such defiance. It escalated quickly, with calls to cut off foreign aid, freeze Caribbean trade deals, and reassess regional alliances altogether. To these voices, Barbados wasn't just wrong, it was dangerous. A precedent like this, if unpunished, could inspire other small nations to challenge the dominance of American diplomacy. But the other side, the one that doesn't usually shout, had something to say too. Progressives, especially younger Americans, didn't just support Barbados, they elevated it. What began as diplomatic resistance quickly turned into cultural admiration. On TikTok, creators posted duets of Mia Mottley's speech, splicing her lines with quotes from civil rights leaders and revolutionaries. And on travel blogs, a new theme emerged. Barbados wasn't just a beach destination anymore. It was a symbol of moral alignment. Political tourism, once a niche idea, found a new heartbeat in Bridgetown. Flights were booked not just for vacation, but for validation. This polarization didn't come out of nowhere. To understand the force behind Barbados's stand, you have to rewind. This wasn't the first time Trump's words or policies had rubbed the region raw. Back in 2018, his now infamous shithole countries remark, though denied and spun, was widely interpreted as an insult to both African and Caribbean nations. In 2019, his administration quietly gutted climate resilience funding, crippling programs that directly helped island nations like Barbados, which face existential threats from rising seas. And in 2020, during his term's most restrictive immigration phases, Trump introduced tighter visa restrictions and travel bans that disproportionately affected Caribbean students and seasonal workers trying to access education and job markets in the U.S. These weren't isolated missteps. They formed a pattern, a message, intentionally or not, that the Caribbean didn't matter. So when 2025 came and the offhand insult dropped, Barbados wasn't hearing it in isolation. They were hearing it through the lens of years of diplomatic slights, policy neglect, and casual disrespect. The remark was simply the final blow, the culmination of a long, bitter record of being looked down upon. And when Barbados hit back, it wasn't with emotion. It was with precision, because Barbados is no longer a bystander on the global stage. Over the past 5 years, the country has undergone a quiet but transformative shift. It launched bold domestic policies like its climate justice tax on luxury real estate, channeling wealth into environmental protection. It sought new partners in China, the UAE, and key African states, building economic bridges that don't lean on Western crutches. And under Motley's leadership, it emerged on global platforms not as a petitioner, but as a policymaker. 3 UN speeches, a Davos address, a feature in World Climate Forums, Barbados wasn't reacting to global discourse. It was helping to shape it. That's why the Trump ban didn't read like a stunt. It was doctrine. A clear, deliberate message. We don't entertain disrespect, not from past empires, and not from present presidents. The move was bold, yes, but it was also coherent with the direction Barbados has been heading, away from dependency and toward sovereignty. And if the ban seemed like the end of something, it wasn't. It was just the beginning. Behind the scenes, whispers emerged about a new policy tool, a National Security Respect Index. According to sources within Barbados's Ministry of Foreign Affairs, this internal framework would assess visitors not only on traditional security risks, but on their public record, whether they had previously insulted, demeaned, or promoted hate toward the Caribbean or its people. It wasn't just about Trump anymore. It was about dignity as a measurable diplomatic factor. And the consequences of this experiment are still playing out. Barbados didn't just respond to an insult. It reframed its entire foreign policy stance around one core idea. Respect is not optional. And in doing so, it gave voice to something deeper, a global craving for dignity and diplomacy, especially among smaller nations who have too often been treated as afterthoughts. Because this story was never just about a remark. It was never just about Trump. It's about the recalibration of global power. It's about formerly colonized nations setting their own tone, choosing their own allies, and enforcing their own standards. It's about a country that refuses to play small anymore. And perhaps most importantly, it's a warning to those who still think of diplomacy as a one-way street, who still assume that wealth buys silence, who believe that small nations should be seen but not heard. Barbados has just reminded the world, we are done asking for respect. We are demanding it. And this time, the world is listening. What do you think? Was Barbados right to ban Trump? Should nations stand up like this and show Trump the true place he belongs in? In the comment section below, share your thoughts on whether any other country can ever have the courage to ban an American president. Do you want to watch more videos like this one? If yes, subscribe to our channel and press the bell icon next to it. We bring the latest news stories on geopolitics, economics, changing world order, and current affairs. things you need to stay informed. Thanks for watching. And until the next video, stay tuned.